round of applause for Lois and Fiji. By the way, this is Fiji, by the way. This is Fiji. So, have you guys mic'd Fiji up at all? Where's the technical guy? I'm not sure. Fiji, are you mic'd up? Okay, we'll get a bit of those answers a bit later. Lois, we welcome you. And we know one thing is going to happen, that when you throw the ball today, rest assured that it's not to your friend. Thank you. Another round of applause for Lois, please.
You may be thinking, wow, she's blind. That must be really hard. Or perhaps you're wondering how I managed to achieve all the items on my introduction without sight. Or maybe you're wondering, where are her cue cards? Well, on that last one, I don't have any, so we're just going to hope that I remember what I want to share with you today. So wish me luck. As you heard, my name is Lois Strachan. I'm a speaker, facilitator, disability consultant, musician, author, and blogger. And yes, I'm totally blind. I lost my sight when I was in my last year of my Bachelor of Arts degree. And I lost my sight as a result of insulin-dependent childhood onset diabetes. I remember when I first lost my sight, coming to the realization that I had a choice. I could go home and give up and be angry and bitter, dependent, depressed, essentially giving my blindness control of my life. Or I could choose to take back that control and actively go out and see what life still had to offer me as a blind person living in a sighted world. That decision to move forwards has resulted in a very strong can-do attitude that has enabled me to take advantage of the opportunities I've encountered, despite the challenges. Okay, sure, it's also meant that I've done a few crazy things in my life, like trying to learn to water ski, but overall, I really do feel that my attitude is an asset to my life and my journey. One of the other attributes that I feel is a real asset that has enabled me to transcend the barriers that so often inhibit the lives and journeys of people living with visual impairment is my determination. My husband, Craig, who assisted me onto the stage with Fiji, he says that the best way to get me to do something is to tell me that I probably won't be able to do it. And he's right. Because as soon as he says those words, I am consumed utterly and totally by the need to prove him wrong. And that might sound like a bad thing, but really it does mean that when we do things, like when we travel overseas, Craig nudging me like that engages my determination to prove to myself that I can do things. And it's enabled me to experience some truly extraordinary moments and places. Here's the thing. I wasn't born with either of those attributes. I never displayed any sign of them when I was growing up. The attributes of determination and attitude occurred only after I lost my sight. And that's kind of a good news, bad news sort of thing, because the good news is that it has enabled me to take advantage of those wonderful opportunities. The bad news is I've learned that it makes me accountable, responsible for every decision, every step that I take in my life. And if I stop doing things, if I stop learning, growing, doing, being more, every day of my life, I no longer have the excuse of blaming my blindness. The decision, the responsibility is mine. And I see that as the definition of self-leadership. I want to share one brief example of how those two attributes, my determination and my attitude, have enabled me to do something in my life. 3 weeks after being declared blind, I returned to university. Now, nowadays, a student with a disability who goes to a college or a university will be able to access materials and access tools and resources to help them through their studies through the disability units. They didn't exist when I lost my sight. I had to figure it all out for myself. And it was thanks to my determination and my attitude, and very significantly, to my amazingly supportive friends and family, my fellow students, my lecturers, and tape aids for the blind, that I managed to complete my Bachelor of Arts degree a mere 10 months after losing my sight. Thank you. I think the most important thing that I learned during the time that I was studying, both doing my Bachelor of Arts and my honours degree, was the skill of problem solving. And it's a skill that I use even today whenever I learn something new. I find innovative, creative ways to help me get round, through, or over the obstacles that I encounter in my life. And we all encounter obstacles. So we need to be innovative. We need to be creative in how we overcome those obstacles. I choose not to dwell on the negative side of blindness. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's all been easy. And even now, I do still have bad days. But the truth is that I choose not to dwell on the frustrations of having to figure out totally different ways of doing things that are so easy for people with eyesight. Things like using a computer, selecting clothing, cooking, shopping, using a cell phone, putting toothbrush on a toothpaste, or pouring a cup of coffee. And I'd like to stop there for a moment and ask you to think about how you pour a cup of coffee. And then imagine how you would do it without sight. How would you know where the cup was? How would you know when that you were pouring the water into the cup? Bearing in mind it's boiling water. How would you know you were pouring it into the cup and not over the counter or on your hands? How would you know when the cup was full? Kind of as a different way of perspective of pouring a simple cup of coffee. So as I say, I choose not to dwell on the frustrations. I prefer to dwell on the wonderful opportunities, the wonderful experiences, the positive side of being able to live an ordinary life despite my blindness. The joy of spending quality time with my family and friends, either in person or online, using email, Facebook, WhatsApp, Skype, and I use all of those platforms, even Twitter. I also am able to revel in the freedom and the independence that working with my guide dog Fiji has given me. I'm able to walk from place to place without bumping into obstacles. She stops at down steps. If we're crossing a road, she will help me cross that road safely. She helps me find flights of stairs, escalators, pedestrian crossings, and with Fiji, I am able to travel wherever I need to go using services like Uber. That's independence. She's not just a dog. She is a fundamental part of my life and of the work that I do. And talking about my work, I believe I am truly fortunate to be able to work in an industry and a career that allows me to fulfill my life's purpose. And both in my writing and my speaking, I engage with companies and with community organizations to explain and demystify disability to increase the inclusion of other people with disabilities into society and increase employment. If you'd like to find out more about how I do any of those tasks or a little bit about my personal journey, you need to read my book. And I do have copies of it available for sale with me, so please, during the lunch break, feel free to come and speak to Craig and myself. We will be able to, I do have copies of the book for sale. Likewise, if you can think of opportunities of people who might benefit from hearing about ways to include people with disability into a workplace or into the community. The ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it that matters." Henry Ford said, "Whether you believe you can or you can't, you are right." And those two quotations really encapsulate the message that I want to share with you today. So often, we let our lives be determined by our fears, by our circumstances, by our perceptions of what is or is not possible for us. My blindness has taught me that I have a choice. And so do you. Don't let your lives be dictated by your fears, by your circumstances, by your perceived limitations. Develop the skills and the attitude that you need to help you live a life of purpose and to help you live a life of your full potential. Ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Lois. You know what stood out for me is something interesting. I was thinking about something philosophical there for a moment, and that was that it is very odd that if you think about this, that all of us sitting on this side that does have eyesight, we actually blind to lots of realities. We're actually blind that we don't see things the way that somebody that's blind sees things. Isn't that a bit odd to think about it that way? That they see life differently, we see life differently, yet we see, but we don't see. So it's something for us to think about. We also want to thank Elsa, Norkia, and Raisa. Elsa is one of our famous viewers, and she's flown all the way from Pretoria to be here. So we thank everyone that's coming from around the country. Lois, just a quick question for you. Are there any days or times that you feel burdened by any of this, because you don't appear burdened by any of this?
Of course I have bad days. Everybody has bad days. That's life. But there's one thing that I say to myself, that I remind myself of on those bad days. Firstly, well, there are two things really. Firstly, I remind myself that even though there are some things that I can't do, there's so many things that I can. Why should I worry about the few things that I can't? And really, for me, fundamentally, I try to live my life in a way that shows that even though I may be disabled, I will never be disempowered.
Thank you very much. So